Last time we stopped at this slide. So let us read it again. After their death, they will be born in the world Sukhavati, in the Buddha country of the same Amitabhas, the Tathagata. In the previous lecture, we said anybody who wholeheartedly chant Namo Amitabha 10 times before departure from this world with no topsy-turvy thought, with concentration, with equanimity of the mind, then after they die, they will be reborn in the Pure Land because they're alaya consciousness, or somebody call it the soul, or somebody call it the Bardo stage. That they will be received by Amitabha into the Pure Land, in the land of happiness, in the Buddha country of the same Amitabhas. Amitabhas is under the name for Amitabha, which means immeasurable lifespan or longevity. The Tathagata is another name, another epithet for the Buddha. Therefore then, O Sariputra, having perceived this cause and effort, I with reverence say thus: every son and every daughter of a family ought with their whole mind to make fervent prayers for that Buddha country. Sakyamuni Buddha introduced this shortcut to get away from reincarnation, to be reborn in the Pure Land after we die. We all have to die anyway. So after we die, usually we reincarnate with our karma. But in this case, if you practice chanting Amitabha all the time, and at the juncture of death, you don't have topsy-turvy mind, no confusion, then you go to that land of happiness, the Pure Land, or somebody called it the heaven. Sakyamuni Buddha said, that's an expedient way, every daughter and son of a family with their whole mind to make prayers to go to that Buddha country. So this is an expedient way of the practice. Usually practice, we depend on our efforts. We have to be awakened. We have to be enlightened. We enlighten ourselves, we attain nirvana in order to be away from reincarnation. But in this case, you not only rely on your own efforts, also rely on the wish and the efforts of Amitabha, the Buddha there, who opened his arms to help you at the juncture of death. As long as you have that transmission of mind, as long as you have that concentration of mind, which you need to practice not at the juncture of death, because at the juncture of death, you'll be so confused sometimes that you cannot gather yourself. You have to practice when you are healthy, not when you are dying. So that's very important. So at this moment, since we have some beginners in here, it is important to mention again, where do we come from? We're talking about death. We were born and then we died. Where do we come from? How come we have to die? How come in the process of the birth, our birth, and between birth and death, there's so much suffering. We've gone through, we've experienced so much. Partially we're happy, and most of the time we may be unhappy, and sometimes we go for agony and sufferings. What's the reason for all this? Why do we have to practice Buddhism? What is the objective of practicing Buddhism? We've got to know about all these things. In order to know about these things, in order to know about this philosophy, the reason behind the practice, the reason behind why we have to follow the Buddha, why we have to awake, why do we have to awake, to wake up? We are dreamers. We are in a big dream, the dream of life. We have to wake up. So what are these? So let's do some reiteration of what we lectured about in the past, which is quite important. We are right now in samsara. We're talking about death, right? We are right now in samsara. We are in the cycle of life and death. You and I, we, all of us. Not only do we have this present life body, we also have previous life's body. And if we keep on reincarnating with our karma, we'll go into the next life. So it's the past, the present, the future, a past life, a present life, and a future life, and reincarnate in a cycle, and we call it the samsara, the cycle of life and death. Finally, we have to die and be born again, we die and born again. What's all these behind? Rebirth in samsara of sentient beings according to their good or evil actions in their previous lifetime. In other words, everything that you do, or your thought, every action, every thought, every speech, all that add up to karma. And what we are experiencing now, if we take that as the effect, is because what you have done in the past. Last year, 20 years ago, or yesterday, or even in previous lifetime, mostly in previous lifetime. We have been accumulating our karma since many, many lifetimes ago. So some people were asked, then, what did I do in my previous life? I don't know. You should know. Why? Because what you are experiencing now, the effect, is because of what causes you have sowed in your past. So if you are healthy now, you're rich, you're healthy, and most of what you do are quite happy or according to your wishes, that's because you have done all these causes that make you happier, that make you healthy, that make you rich, that make you born in a rich family. Nothing is without a reason. That's what you have done in the past. Why are some people short life? They die at young age. Why are some people unhealthy? Why are some people always get sick? Why are some people have a broken family? Some have abused childhood. Some have a happy childhood. Why are some people suffering? It's because of what they have done in the past. They created their own karma. So the Buddha said, watch your karma. Watch every thought, every action, and every speech, because that adds up. That's an accumulation. Because of what we have done, then we are reborn again and again and again in every lifetime in 6 paths. Hell, animals, and hungry ghosts. That's the vicious realms. Asuras, devas, and humans are in non-vicious realms. Most people were born into the 3 vicious realms, the hell, the animals, and the ghost realm. The fact that we're a human realm is because of what you have done in the past that makes you become a human. Not God. Not God makes you become a human. Or not God push you down to hell, and not God who push you up to heaven. If God can exercise that right, He would have given everybody the right to go to heaven, not going down to hell, not going down to animal realm, not going down to hungry ghost realm. Because God will only create something good for you, not creating something bad for you. It's you are your own God. You created all this yourself. Then what is responsible for rebirth? Your karma. Your action, your speech, your thought of the past and present lives that have become latent energies for the reincarnation. There's latent energy in everybody, and we call that karma. That latent energy is latent with what? Not only with bad, with good karma too. Sometimes you're compassionate, you're considerate, you are kind, you always help people, and you are a good social worker, and you are a philanthropist, you donate everything, you don't keep it for yourself, you are so altruistic. Sometimes you're good, and sometimes you're bad. But imagine, to most people, they are bad all the time. We are bad all the time. If you analyze every thought, every day we have billions and billions of thought. How many ones of those thoughts are good thoughts and how many are bad thoughts? You can classify it. But you don't even know when a thought comes up in you. When a bad thought comes up in you, you don't even know about it. It's unnoticed. It flashes so fast that it's unnoticed. And just give a very simple example. You're someone who's always greedy, and here's Christmas comes and you want to buy a gift, and you go to a gift shop and nobody around, you're so greedy that you want to pick, you want to steal something. And that thought of greediness flashes in you in a fraction of a second. That drives you to steal. So every thought comes so quick you may not notice it. If you can notice every one of your thought, you must have done a lot in your meditation. Remember how we meditate? We watch every breath in and out. That is training us to watch every one of our thought. 99% of the people, they don't realize that the thought comes up. Until the thought comes up and they carry out volitional action and behavior according to that thought, and they committed the error. So thought is very important. You are what you're thinking. Let's carry on. So, because of all this karma we produce, when the karma is produced, particularly if you have bad karma, what's the result of it? Suffering. And it's very scientific. You produce the karma of killing. You produce the karma of hurting people. You produce the karma of drunken driving. You kill someone. You get punished by the law. You abuse your child. You get punished by the law. So just by looking scientifically, you know that there's effect and cause. That is cause and effect. So if all this bad karma that you have done, that brings a lot of suffering and agonies to you. And if we can classify those sufferings, these are the sufferings. I've gone through them a lot of times, so I'm going to rush it through. Birth is suffering. Aging is suffering. Nobody can escape birth and aging. Nobody can escape sickness. Death, you can escape. And suffering arising from separation from loved ones and pleasant conditions. So suffering arising from living with hated ones. Suffering arising from insatiable desires, you have a lot of desires, resulting in sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair. And in short, attachment to the 5 skandhas result in multiplicity of sufferings. And one of the 5 skandhas, we'll explain it later to you. So all these are the sufferings that we have. And if you are living in this world and you don't even know about suffering, you haven't lived your life. And I met people like that, especially young people. When they're 15, 16, they live in a rosy garden all the time. They live in a greenhouse, taken care by their mom and dad. They haven't suffered. They don't even have to go for summer job. They don't have to do anything. They're just nurtured by their parents. And then they say, when I talk about suffering, no, I'm not suffering. I'm happy. He's 18 and he's driving a Ferrari provided by parents. But one day he got in an accident, he lost his limbs. He started to be agonizing. Because you really have to experience life to know suffering. You really have to be more or less intelligent to know about sufferings. So nobody can deny all these sufferings. And what are suffering? Why do we have suffering? Suffering arising from what? Basically, suffering is because of what we have done, the karmic energy we created. So suffering arising from, why do we produce this karmic energy? Because of our desire. Let's look at desire. Desire have 2 classifications. Some are good desires and some are bad desires. Desire that contaminates your mind, leading to suffering and samsara. What are these desires? Desires that make you bad, make you go down to animal realm, hell realm, and ghost realm. Craving for wealth, reputation, status, and power. Passion of attachment to one's view and belief. Obstinacy, your own view. And satisfaction from furtherance of one's pleasures that relate to the 6 senses, sense organs. Your eyes, your ear, your nose, your tongue, your body, and the mind. So you want to satisfy your senses. You want to listen to the best music. You want to taste the best food. And you want to satisfy your senses. And there's a term for people who like particularly to satisfy only their senses looking for pleasure. And that's what we call Epicurean. You only want to satisfy your senses at the expense of others, at the expense of hurting other people. So all these things, desire, you should control and eliminate, but you don't control and eliminate them. You foster them. You breed up to them. You want them to be satisfied. And you even argue about it. I want to satisfy my sense. I don't care. As long as I'm happy. As long as my eyes see pleasant things, my ears listen to dulcet music, good music, as long as all my senses are satisfied, I don't care about all the others. That is called selfishness. And all these things lead to suffering. All these things lead to mental afflictions. All these things lead to volitional actions and behavior and speeches that lead you into suffering. And this is bad desires that in our practice of the Buddhist faith, the Buddhist teachings, we want to eliminate them, we want to control them. That's why we're meditating. That's why we want to control all these things when they come up. We want to know every thought when it comes up. That's why we're meditating. If a person knows every thought, if a third person can control every thought, you are the master of your own faith. And to a North American positivist, if you can control every thought and you think positively, you'll be successful in everything you do. Because you can carry out every thought of perseverance, every thought of concentration, every thought of prosperity, every thought of compassion, every thought of you name it, because you can control yourself. You have a foundation to build on, good morality to build on, and then you lead every thought to sanity, every thought to enlightenment, every thought to compassion. You see how the importance of controlling your thought? And these are the bad desires to purify your mind, leading to enlightenment and nirvana. To wish, to long for discovery and wisdom and deliverance from suffering of oneself and others. How many people will be longing for enlightenment? How many people desire to achieve enlightenment? How many people desire to be out of life and death, samsara? How many people to be desire of helping others to be out from sufferings? Desire to help practicing the Bodhisattva way. And desire you should initiate and maintain this kind of desire. So up to this point, beginners, what is Buddhism? Is it about kneeling and prostrating to Buddha and say, Buddha, give me all the blessings? You are your own Buddha. The Buddha is right inside of you. Do you want to unravel that mystic, powerful, unbelievable, immeasurable power in you? And we call it the Buddha nature. You've got that. It's just being covered by all the dirt and pollutants. Can you work on removing the pollutants? Or you don't really care? You want to add on pollutants? It's up to you. I have explained to you, to all of us, and we can bring it up for discussion when you're asking questions at lunchtime. Why do we come to this world? Why do we get reborn? We have no say. Who has the say in it? Your own karma. The karmic energy pull you to where you should belong based on causality, based on circumstances. Who created these circumstances? You. You create all the conditions for yourself to go down to hell, or to heaven, or to humans, or to animal realm. This karmic energy, the latent energy in you, we call it karma, good, bad, or neutral, pull us to where we belong. Life after life and life after life. And when we're in that realm, we suffer. Because you cannot escape aging, sickness, death, separation from beloved ones, suffering arising from insatiable desires, suffering because of outer catastrophes, tsunami, natural disasters, wars, genocide, people commit suicide or homicide, and you open up the newspapers and see how these things happen. One genocide in a country about 15 years ago, rather, in Africa, in 3 months in the genocide war, 800,000 people were killed. In the Second World War, 25 million people, a rough estimate, were killed. Hitler eliminated 6 million Jews. In the cultural revolutions, I don't know, 6-7 million people were killed. In the Japanese occupation, the Japanese war in the Second World War, 15 million people, civilians, were killed. 3 million Japanese soldiers were killed. People kill each other. You don't call that agony. You don't call that suffering. You say, I am happy. I'm driving a Ferrari now. My parents gave me all this, and I'm in the rosy garden, and I'm gonna succeed a big estate from my parents, and I don't care. You look at the society with analytical mind. In some countryside, in some hilly territories of certain underdeveloped country or semi-underdeveloped country, a family owed a debt of $1,200 US dollars. They borrow $1,200 to buy seeds for plantations. They live in the hillside and they want to grow food, potatoes and yams and all that. And they borrow with high interest, and after a while add up to $1,500 and then add up to $2,000. And then some families sold their daughter to brothels just for $1,500. You don't believe it? You click into YouTube and say, what do you call that? Social workers in certain countries. There are social workers that go to those countries and save those girls. 13-year-old, 14-year-old, they were sold by their parents for $1,200 in Burma, in Thailand. You don't believe it? And they've gone through their whole life in a brothel. So much sufferings. And all these, you say, okay, they created their own faith. I don't need to help them. That's not what a bodhisattva should do. Because that compassion to be rendered, because the power of the compassion can change lives. So what did I say? I say, all this suffering arises, and we acknowledge, you have to acknowledge and know the facts of those suffering, and we must help ourselves and help others to remove all these sufferings. Are you satisfied with this suffering and say, I want to suffer, I don't care? Who wants to suffer? Put up your hand. If I say who do not want to suffer, everybody would have his hand. I don't want to ask that questions. But work at it. You don't want to suffer, you don't work at it. You just allow yourself to be suffering. And now, that's your first step. You look at the Buddhist teaching, you're trying to realize how good it is. You know how you change, you can change yourself. But how do you change? I'm going to give you a broad concept of suffering, of reincarnation, of karma, good karma, bad karma, of cause and effect. But in detail, how does this cause and effect comes out? How does this suffering created? How is this suffering created? When I'm interacting with the world, why am I producing karma? How should I watch for? How does every thought comes up? How do I control my thought? How do I lead my thought to enlightenment? How do I become less greedy, less ignorant? How do I become better?